We welcome the team and community from WASD Studios in for an AMA. WASD has their token on Ethereum currently, but the real crown jewel within their ecosystem is their game development. And right now they have 4 games currently live. They have their FPS Shooter, which you can see Grover playing on the screen there. Pretty clean graphics. Looks like the speed of movement and everything is really good. I personally love some of the demos and the gameplay clips that I've seen from their kart racing. They have a drifting game, which I think Jay mentioned is his favorite to play last week when we had our utility showcase. And then they just released since then their Tekken-Style kind of fighter game. I know when I used to go to the movies back in the day, those pre-movie arcades, Tekken was always, Tekken or air hockey were probably the 2 games of choice for me. So yeah, I really like that they're kind of bringing some nostalgia back with that and their Mario Kart racing style game as well. Now we're going to break down throughout the AMA kind of how the WASD token fits within the ecosystem here. Our holders can see some benefits over their growth. From a marketing standpoint, I know that these guys are taking a bit of a traditional Web2 or gaming approach, really going after the player acquisitions and partnerships, not so much just smashing calls out there, because you guys know, without really taking the time to look at a project like this, check out some of the demos, maybe even play the games yourself, you're not really going to get what what the project's all about. You're going to buy based on hype and sell based on, chart movement. So I do like their approach. It's better for long-term projects. And again, first time working with the team, but I know Buck and, the others that we've touched on with about, WASD, I've been really impressed. And I know the private group MMKK that I'm in with Buck, was really impressed by the presentation you guys had yesterday, and you guys really did put on a great show. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and throw you the mic here, Jay. You can go ahead and introduce yourself and start to introduce a little bit more intimately what WASD is all about.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate this opportunity. Yep, so I am JD. I am the spokesperson for WASD. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with the WASD. It's very important because it goes back to the PC gaming days when people used to use those 4 keys to do directional control or any other inputs to actually play games on a PC. Probably goes back to the dial-up modems and all that stuff for the internet, if you guys are familiar with that stuff. Yeah, so WASD is a studio. So it's going to be a lot more than just one big game. It's going to be a bunch of games. It's going to be a whole suite of games. WASD started by a guy named Mike, who is an indie game developer, has been in the industry for years. He's very efficient and good at what he does, along with Qwerty. Qwerty is the CMO for WASD. They collectively got together, having been in the crypto industry for a while. Mike has worked on some back-end stuff for projects, but he has never done his own project, and then connected with Qwerty, who's been in the industry a long time. And those two came together and said, how can we make our own project, and how can we be successful at it? So before they even launched, obviously there was a lot in the background that was going on. They got games ready, set up shop, did what they needed to do, and then they ended up launching the project. The token went live on March 22nd, so it is over a month old now. And for the first month, it's basically just been a lot of organic growth, getting to know people, networking, letting people play, and giving people an actual experience of what to expect in the gameplay, as opposed to just creating a bunch of hype and then releasing a game a year later, which seems to be a trend that some projects do. But they wanted to focus on organic growth, building the community, and getting people to actually start participating in the projects themselves. One of the beautiful things about it is we've had people that have come in and said, I haven't played games in years. Like, man, it's been forever. Let me try this one. And then they play it and they come back with a great, testimony of, man, that was so much fun. And especially if you get them playing online with other people at the same time, it really becomes addicting. So there's a disclaimer there. you might start playing, you might play too long, you might make your wife or husband or whoever, children, mad at you because you get stuck doing this stuff. But yeah, really good people, really transparent people that have started the project. They're always in the TG space, answering questions, taking feedback from people that are playing the games, that would like to see certain attributes in those games. So it is a really open relationship with the team. So there's really nothing to hide, which I think is one of the best ways to build a community and continue to build a community. I honestly, I just hate when you never hear from teams and all of a sudden they just drop something and they kind of keep everything hush hush. Well, you're not going to get that with WASD. Just they're transparent. They love what they do. They care about the community. It's a super great place to be. So that kind of wraps up the intro, unless you got some other questions.
And just more so general overview for the intro, Jay, and I really do appreciate you going into that amount of detail for me. Now, I know you mentioned a bit when we were just kind of shooting the shit before, the inspiration and in terms of trying to roll out a game. I think it was every week or every other week, at a minimum to start, just, to make sure that the community and people know that you guys are serious and capable of turning around, these different styles of games fairly quickly, but in a way that also has provided a quality end product. So I just wanted to go a little bit more in terms of that development process. Like, how many are you in-house? How have you been able to turn around these concepts so quickly? Are these things that have been kind of pre-developed and maybe just waiting for final touches? And what's still to come? Like, what's in the pipeline? What can people expect next from you guys over there?
All of the above. That is all the above. It is having already started building up the games, releasing something that people can actually get a feel for and appreciate, getting people involved in those games, and then anticipating that those games can continually be able to be built out as the project continues and goes forward. So yeah, they had the FPS. So the first person shooter, the one you see Grover playing live right now, this game is super addicting. That was the first one that they dropped. It was kind of one of the ones that people seem to favor the most. It's a Call of Duty style game. Yeah, they started this one, but the interesting thing about it is it's dynamically being added to. So you just saw Grover get into a tank and start blowing people up, right? Well, we all sat there and said, that's great, but what about the people that don't have a tank? It's hard for them to beat the people that do because you're kind of fortified in there. Yeah, comments that were brought up in the TG chat. And then all of a sudden, the devs like, hold. Next thing you know, there's two tanks in the game. So now you can, two tanks can go head to head. So like those types of things are super important for project growth too. Community feedback, and then dynamically seeing the results of that feedback and improving the game as it's actually happening at that moment. I mean, amazing things. So they dropped the FPS, and then when you thought that was addicting enough, the dev comes out and throws a drifting game out there where you literally go and you can get cars and different accessories on those cars. You can jack them up, you can lift them up, you can, calibrate the steering, things of that nature. And then you basically go and just rack up points drifting around courses and getting money within the game to buy more accessories, which is kind of like a demo at this point, just to get more feedback and see where it can progress to. And then after that, like a Mario Kart game version that is going to be built off of too, because a lot of people loved Mario Kart growing up, a very simple game. So the dev threw that in there. And then he also came out with the player versus player Tekken Street Fighter style game, which, gosh, that's another one. I actually played the dev on it, and he wiped me up on the first game, and I beat him the last 2 times. And so I got some bragging rights there, which are pretty fun. I mean, if you guys don't know what it feels like to beat a developer at his own game, it is a great feeling. And then you get to rub it in his face, so even better on top of that. But all these games, they're just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's going to be more and more stuff added. And not only within these games, there's going to be more and more stuff added. While the community was running and after the games were dropped, specifically the first one, the dev added token gating right away to the game and then has added more to those games. So when it comes time to do big tournaments and different sorts of cash prizes for holders, we can do that option because we have the games token gated. But, you know, on the flip side of that, we want people that are non-holders to be able to experience it too, get a feel for it, and then decide whether they can invest into the game or not. So there is obviously a non-holder side to that. What we're trying to accomplish right now is trying to get organic growth. And we've decided that we see a lot of projects out there in the GameFi industry. They're either hyping the project up, there's no game to play, the whole space is just hype, waiting, the anticipation. That's great. You know, there's always hype marketing and stuff. And then there's post-marketing. You reveal the product, and then you get people to experience, and then you figure out, you know, how to grow off of that aspect. Well, we wanted people to come into the community and be able to start playing with other people. And we thought, what better way to do that than actually just hold competitions for all. So we've already had 3 competitions ran. Another one's going to start soon. Those competitions get paid out in ETH. Typically, we've been doing 3 different prizes, $100, $50, and $25 for first, second, and third place winners. And this we find is just a great way to stimulate people in the project and get them playing. And then when they feel comfortable enough to vet the project, vet the games, they can decide whether they want to be holders and get into the bigger tournaments. And that's going to lead into a lot more stuff. And we can talk about it a little later or now if you want, but we can get into the marketplace, the buying these accessories, having to hold the token to actually buy things. But that's kind of, in a nutshell, that's kind of how the games were released. That's kind of how we're trying to get people involved in the games. We're using that also as a way to keep the community engaged and hyped and excited. So, you know, an exciting space and excited for the present, but also excited for what is to come. We feel it's just a great way to organically grow the community, and it's more sustainable as opposed to what you alluded to earlier, you know, just investors buying the charts and pumping it up and then selling the charts. Like, we don't want that. Like, our primary focus is to build a community, make it sustainable. So yes, we have investors that come in and they're just there to invest. They see the value in the game, and you're always going to have that. It's Web3. That's what people are here for. But we also have the other side of that, where it's people coming in who love to play games, and maybe they haven't been playing for years, but they get in and they get reintroduced to it, and it brings up those familiarities from their past life, and it engages them. And then even new people that have never played, and they get in and they see how much fun it is. Yeah, it's just a great community. How we've been releasing things in the timeline that the dev decided to. It's been going really well, and you can see it. You can see it in the community. You can see it on the chart. Back to when this launched, unless you are a person that is well connected, that has been in the industry for years, you have all your networking done with the bigger and more credible callers, things become a lot easier for that project to launch and go to higher market caps. But not every project has that luxury, especially when you have an honest team that wants to build something great. but they didn't have the big callers in their back pocket. You can't access those people right away. So you will even notice on the chart from the beginning, the team launched the project, invested in the project, and went to a pretty nice market cap. I think it was like 2.8 million all-time high, and then consolidated back down to that 500, 600 market cap, 5 to 600K market cap, and consolidated there. But that was because we had to take on the early degen callers, the guys that are in it for the 2-time, 3-time. They don't, necessarily appreciate the long-term holds. They're just trying to get theirs and get out really quick. So you saw that big pump at the beginning where it consolidated, and then time took its course in proving the product. And so time went by. We got over to a month and got the other connections going, and people that actually saw the value, like yourself, Maurice. And now we're actually to the point where we're getting people on board that see the value in it and are helping us push this forward, because this could be a huge project, especially with the tools that we have and the group that we have. I mean, it could go pretty dang big. So I won't throw numbers out there, my expectations, but I definitely think it's going to be an amazing ride and great long-term hopes for this project. And sorry for rambling on there. But
I wanted to kind of have you touch on a little bit. You set me up with a great segue to go into a little bit more on some of the adoption numbers you've seen so far, things you guys have been noticing in terms of player growth, where you guys are at on daily usage. Just kind of that conversation. I know it's still very, very early on, but like that really is a good indicator in terms of the growth on the back end analytics on players, how you guys have been able to see adoption. And then, the more people you guys have playing your game, the more detailed feedback you're going to be able to receive. And hopefully it's going to allow you to just continue and improve and tailor that experience even better for that player base, right? So yeah, really wanted to go in more on the player base, kind of what you're seeing in terms of growth of players, and then how maybe you guys have been able to utilize that community to help with the beta testing side, game feedback, and making improvements to the actual games themselves and what players want to see.
Yeah. So the dev has told us that the statistics keep rising. Obviously we want to see it in the thousands. We're still growing to that point, and the competitions are really helping us get to that point. Personally, I'm not the guy who looks at the statistics because I don't have all that information in front of my face, but I've been gauging I've been kind of gauging the user increasing based off how much more smack talking has been in the community. So the more smack talking that's been occurring, because it's progressively getting more. We're adding, new players, whether it's daily or a couple days, new players are continuing to come in. And we keep getting amazing testimonies from these guys that show up that haven't been in the chat. And the first day they'll be like, yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. And next thing you know, it's silence for a couple of days. And they come back and they're like, okay, yeah, that's addicting. Dang it. Okay, I'm in type of thing. And we've been getting those testimonies all the time. So statistics have been going up. At first, when the gameplays started coming out, there was probably only, I think 4 to 5 of us constantly playing, and then actually getting online and playing against each other. And as time has grown, now, we're getting regular occurrences where, there's probably 20 plus people that are constantly playing. And then there's the diehards that are playing all the time. Grover is always fighting to keep his first place, and he's battling another guy named Nick, who's just, I don't even know how these guys get the scores that they do. And so we got like some standout guys that are the guys that we're trying to take down, but we're not having a lot of success there. I've also noticed that there are certain games that people kind of gear towards the most. I would say that the first-person shooter game is the top game. It seems like everybody tends to play that game more and then come back with their stories on that or play together. The next one I think in line that has kind of been the kingpin is the drifting game. The drifting game is super addicting, and I think the reason why it's super addicting, it's almost meditational, because you basically just use the arrow keys if you want, and like those are the only controls, and you literally can slide around the track like the whole way. And if you're really good at it, you can do through the whole time trial without wrecking yourself and continue to build up your money and your points. So that one actually seems like it's more of a hit when it comes to online game playing against other people. I have a screenshot of some of the scores we took, but it was me, the dev, and QWERTY playing against each other. And I mean, we're literally crashing into each other, jumping each other as we're crashing into each other, you know, making each other flip and go crazy, and then smack talking after it. So that game tends to be one of the games that is a really big hit when it comes to online playing each other. The Mario Kart, I feel like the Mario Kart one's struggling a little bit, because when you put it up next to the FPS game and the drifting game, people are, you know, they're just picking those games over the other one. And you're always going to have that. The more games you put out, there's going to be favorites. And then the Tekken game style one, that one's super addicting too. I noticed that one's been picking up a lot. But that one was released on the 4th week, so it's taken a, you know, it's got to pick up traction. But yeah, statistically, everything's going up. We're getting more users, more members are joining the group. We're getting people from all over the world playing these games, giving us the feedback, even if we, you know, don't typically understand what they're saying sometimes. It's usually positive feedback. I haven't seen one time that someone's given a negative comment back. Everything has been super positive, and all the feedback we get has been more of suggestions to add to the game to either help user play or make the user play funner. And we got the guy that can do it right on the spot, so it keeps people engaged. And we also have, and just to touch base on that too, we have 3 main admins. Mike being the dev, the developer, he's the owner of the project. QWERTY being the CMO. There's another admin in the background that kind of stays in the background. He helps on the marketing side of it. You got me as the spokesperson. We have a few more mods in the group. And we also have another developer that's on the back end, but he only comes into play when we need him. So he's not constantly in it. And then right now, we just made an announcement in the group too that the dev is going to be focusing on some iterations within the current games. And then moving forward, obviously, getting feedback from the community on different games that they would like to see. And then also the marketplace, which is a lot of it's been hashed out already. It's just getting community feedback and understanding how we want to push the marketplace forward. So that answers your question.
It definitely does. Now, you brought up an important point, and I'm glad you touched on it, because that's really where I wanted to to go with my question is, like, as you guys have released games and you're doing your statistical analysis and breaking down, where people are really flowing to, what the sentiment is around each, like, as you continue to grow and scale and run the games over there, what are you going to do from a resource allocation standpoint? You brought up the point in terms of when there's a number of different games available, oftentimes there will be those that see like the lower usage. So, like, how do you figure out and determine like when it's a good time to release another game versus just maybe rolling out something if you're not 100% sure if the positive sentiment or the player adoption is going to be there? Like, how do you make sure that you're kind of using those resources to the best of the project's ability moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question too, and you got to be strategic about it. With what's transpired up into this point, getting the 4 games out there, having the roadmap to say let's drop a game a week in the first month, establish credibility, establish trust, get the people playing, and get the feedback. So now it's way more of a strategy to get community feedback and get an understanding of what people want to see. So that's dynamically happening right now. We have kind of taken a step back now at this point and say, okay, now we've transitioned into a phase where we want to focus on what is really going to entice people to stay in the group. It's one thing to market and get people to show up just because you've piqued their curiosity, but to get them in and to stay in, how do we capitalize on that? And we feel at this point that the next game to come out can be held off to the point till the community wants to see it. But we want our holders and the people that have stuck with us for this first month to be rewarded for that. So we've been focusing a lot on let's get certain things and different attributes into these games that make people hold the token. So right now, we're pushing the staking part of it. We're not ready to release it yet because we still feel it's a little early at this point. We've seen projects that had to pull staking off the map because it wasn't working out right and it could have killed the whole project. We've seen people mess up and put too high of an APY in the staking, and that caused catastrophe on early projects. So we're really being smart about when to get people in and give them an incentive to hold, but also at the same time what's best for the project, which also ties into when we release staking, that'll be huge, that'll be great. We want the volume to be there. We want people to be rewarded for that, so it will come. The next thing is we have continually come up with, I say they're brilliant ideas on how to monetize and capitalize on the accessories within these games. So the dev's been looking at that and working at that real hard. And again, there's already the foundation and certain things within the marketplace. It hasn't been dropped yet because it's continually being updated and explored and what we want to add on to that. So, this is kind of a norm you'll see in a different, across the board when we talk about, hey, encourage holders to hold, get skins, buy skins with the tokens, monetize the WASD tokens, to buy certain accessories. Maybe it's another, special car that you only have access to if you are a holder. Maybe it's special guns and ammunition within the FPS game. Maybe it's decals on the car. A lot of things that we've been talking about have to do with how do we branch out into other projects and incentivize other projects to partner with us. Some of the cool things we've talked about is the meme world. Wouldn't it be cool to have a player versus player fight each other, but one guy's Doge and one guy's Shiba, they have a skin of that on their robot fighter guy. Or maybe it's how do we get guys to sponsor cars or projects to sponsor cars with their decals and their logos on those cars and be able to use them into competition. So really networking out, outside of our project to get other projects to partner and get the community members to be involved into WASD projects. So we're continuing to formulate those plans to get people making money and monetizing and being rewarded for holding, and also getting people to buy the WASD token to invest that back into the project to be able to, share within the community. Back to you.
Just started taking some notes down in the background as you guys go. I really appreciate the detail, man, from some of your answers, Jay. And yeah, it's important that you guys are listening to community, and that's where the voice of the community definitely is going to become powerful, right? Because as you guys go through feedback and look to introduce other games, if you run polls in the community or maybe introduce the concept, and then people are like, well, like that sounds good, but we'd rather see, something like this. Could you guys get something like this going around, right? And then there's a lot of, appetite for that. It's going to allow you to really utilize what you do have as a team much more efficiently. So yeah, no, that's definitely good. Voice of the community is going to be, number one.
That's kind of, it's kind of hard because when you think of product development in the real world, well, I shouldn't say the real world. When you see product development in the corporate side of things, you'll see a lot of these companies, like they develop a product, but then they do the case study behind it, right? And they're bringing in people, they're reviewing their feedback. People are getting paid to test products. There's the testing what the customers want outside, all those different little dynamics that go into marketing, building a better product, and then obviously releasing it to the customer. We are so early in this development. I mean, from only being just a little over a month old to what has been accomplished and what the team has decided to let the community play with is huge. It's not many projects do it like this, but we feel that we are in such an early development stage that it makes sense to get early holders and early people in the community to experience this and to get that customer feedback. So we're literally, even if they're not holders, we're getting free testing, we're getting free feedback, we're getting, people excited and jazzed about the project. Like, it is just so early for how much material is out there right now within this project, and we still don't even feel like we've shown our hand before all the cards were on the table. We really feel like you're seeing the tip of the iceberg. Everybody's seeing the tip of the iceberg. Like, there's just an infinite or limitless amount of growth potential within GameFi that you can keep doing, keep adding, and continuing to grow the space. And so yeah, I think that's huge. Community feedback and just dropping something that no one wants to play is just a horrible idea. Getting their feedback, getting them in it, and really catering to what the community wants. I think that's just a big deal.
Then, how do you guys, from more of a growth standpoint, or a feedback, or not feedback, benefit to holder standpoint? Like, what are you guys going to do as you scale up the games and the player base? Like, how does revenue, or I guess benefits, come into play for those that are actually holding the WASD token? Are you guys going to introduce maybe subscription based, play, like a subscription based, kind of like a battle pass on Fortnite or something like that, where you can pay a fee and get access to the game ecosystem for like a month, maybe without needing to necessarily hold the WASD token, a way to potentially onboard people without going through the steps of buying a specific token. If you make it Ether something versus having to go through and buy a token, then use the token to buy something or get access, it sometimes just saves on the steps, right? And from a pipeline perspective, every click that you reduce in the pipeline, you're going to get a higher percentage of people funneling through for adoption. So
we might have to hire you, man. That was a good idea. Honestly, I got a buddy that's super successful in the computer programming world, like really successful. He has a big company, and it was funny because when he was telling me the whole story of like what worked and what didn't, he said he really struggled making profit when they would just sell products one at a time. He said the moment that they added subscriptions in there, he said the company immediately was the most profitable it had ever been, and then they continued to grow off that, making it a multi-million-dollar company. So man, the fact that you said subscription, like, just was like a light bulb, and that is definitely something we need to discuss within the group, because that could be a brilliant idea. But back to the traditional part of crypto. I mean, it seems like everything is we have staking, or you can do tiered rewards. So if you hold X amount of tokens, you hit tier 1, X amount of tokens, you hit tier 2. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of those tiered token holders. I know whoever's holding the tokens is a fan, but I've always felt like it doesn't help the little guy. I've always been a big fan of staking. We really continue to lean just towards staking, instead of kind of that tiered structure part of it to get more revenue. And I know it's good to bring the whales in, but at the same time, if you stake more tokens, you obviously get more tokens. And I think, personally, it's still undecided, and we know staking's going to be foundational regardless. That's just what it is. Any type of revenue generated, whether it's a web, and we're tackling the Web 2 industry, obviously. Like, we need to do that. Every GameFi community needs to tackle the Web 2 industry and get them over to Web 3. It just makes Web 3 that much stronger. So if we can entice people out the gate from the Web 2 side, Web 2 side to pay, whether it's just with a credit card, fantastic. If we can get them into Web 3 and get them buying WASD and get that into the pipeline, fantastic. If we can work with other projects and somehow implement their token into buying maybe their accessories, fantastic. Whatever the strategy comes down to and whatever we decide to implement, I do know that foundationally, those will be that monetary value and how we're monetizing on things will be fed back through staking regardless. If we do decide to go to a tier thing, obviously all that profit can be used towards that. But we do really want to reward the holders. So staking is first and foremost for us. And then the tier level stuff. And one of the other things I've noticed in every single community that I've seen, you just can't escape it. Someone drops a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 benefits, depending on how much you hold. And I always see people complain about it. And I always see people asking when is the team going to lower the price because you came out with these tier pricings at a 1 million market cap, 2 million market cap, and now we're here at 20 million market cap, and now nobody can afford those, top tiers. And I just never see that I've never seen an advantageous reason to put those tier structured in. And then the other side of it, usually those big whales that hold tier 1 and tier 2, they're never actively in the project. Like, you never really know if you're hearing from them or not. Some guys you do. So I always find that it's more of a negative sentiment with that stuff. And I always find the staking is always like the positive note, because everybody can participate in it. Maybe that could change. I don't know. But the point is, all the monetary value that we bring in from what is going to be implemented from the marketplace, that's all going to get funneled back in, and the holders through staking, that's definitely going to be a reward, or be where a lot of the reward comes from, back to those people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I guess, like, from like a supply or like a distribution standpoint, maybe we should go into a little bit about the tokenomics and how everything's going to work, what you guys have allocated or set aside for tournaments, competitions, and if you want to go maybe more into the tokenomics and distribution there for us, Jay.
Sure. Yeah, and just back to also, when we're talking about like feedback from the community on what the game plays like, even feedback on rev share and all those different things, like, we want to know that stuff. So it's never a closed door. It's, it's always a progression. So if we continually get feedback, if we get, expert people that decide to come on board as advisors, and they suggest things from what they've seen and their, tribal knowledge that they've, learned throughout the years, like, nothing's a closed door. There's always ways to improve on something. So you always got to come at it from a mindset that, we got to adapt to what the industry wants. So I think that's a big thing. And I think, like what you said, like subscriptions, like just that type of, feedback, I think it's huge. So I think that's great. So getting into the tokenomics side, it was launched with 1 billion tokens initially. The tax is normal ETH tax of 5 in, 5 out, so nothing aggressive there. So obviously the volume there has been helping huge with marketing. If you went and looked in the marketing wallet, you would see that the team has spent like half of the marketing wallet already, and which isn't a small number. I think it's like 30 to 40 ETH. Like, the team continues to spend money and do what it needs to do to get people to see the project, and they're not spending it carelessly either. They're being strategic about, the right contacts and the right connections. And obviously we're on Caesar space, like, so that's just a testament in itself of them being responsible with, who and the community members and who's actually seeing the project. So yeah, 1 billion token supply. The team did originally keep 15% of that back for the LP. If you want something bullish, I mean, you could look at it from like the beginning. If someone put this amount of time on an LP lock, you could probably look at it as a pro or a con, depending on how the team did it right. But after a month, I can confidently say this team put a 2-year lock on the LP, which is huge. I mean, that just tells you, like, they're in it for the long run. They're in it to build this thing out and make this project a staple amongst all the other GameFi projects. 2 years is insane. Like, that's an absolute amazing number to lock up LP for, especially if the market cap grows to a huge, significant number. So super positive. The other thing is, they did keep 15% of that back for marketing initially. A lot of that has been depleted already. So we're talking, there's only, it's under 2% left. Like there's not much of it left. So just goes to show that the team used it. The team has been using it. They're putting themselves in the right positions to move forward, especially with other partners and people to get on board. And then also being able to use those WASD tokens for the marketplace and getting that money back into the project to share with other holders. And I think, yeah, I think that's about it that I can think of off the top of my head.
Awesome. Now, when you guys were like kind of setting that aside and like building out how you're going to structure like the gameplay and I guess like the leaderboard system, will you guys be implementing in like those monthly rewards and stuff like that in the future? I know like you probably have to hit a certain level of players. I would say like sometimes what I notice is games give out, chunks of rewards or chunks of supply in the very, very early stages when they're trying to build up a player base. But what ultimately ends up happening is just people will accumulate so much that then it puts the project in a tough position, because then you have people getting free supply and kind of waiting to hold to dump it till the chart pumps. And it's, sometimes not enticing for new people to buy in when there's that, distribution happening. So yeah, just trying to figure out how it's going to be rolled out, and like, if there's any, I don't like the word controls, but any safeguards in place. Maybe that's a better word I'll use, just to ensure that people aren't hurting the chart, or those rewards given out like don't have a negative impact in the longer term around big events.
100%. Yeah. So right now, if you looked at the holder distribution, it is amazing. I don't think anybody holds over 2%. It's pretty phenomenal. Especially as of now, we're over 1,000 holders. So the percentage is distributed amazingly after the first, and I call it the phase 1 pump, the launch pump, where everybody goes crazy. And obviously those pumps are never sustainable unless you have some magic wand, and you may know, huge investors that are not going anywhere, and they're the guys that originally got into it, so they hold the floor after it. So when we were coming back down, the wallet distribution or holder distribution became phenomenal. So that's great for going forward from a foundational aspect. From the aspect of making sure that nobody gets, too many tokens. These are reasons that we have incentivized these competitions to be ETH payouts and not WASD payouts. We're trying to mitigate those things, and we will continue to mitigate. Ensure that people are not, hoarding too much, and that they can hurt the chart in that regard. So a lot of these, especially going forward on these tournaments, there's never going to be at any point where it's like a huge token drop of the WASD token, just for those reasons. And a lot of these tournaments, if there's prizes, we feel like the ETH avenue is one of the best avenues. But there will be times when within the token gating that people are going to be able to bet their tokens. So we're kind of relying on the community in that regard, not to be betting stupidly with tokens that they can't afford to lose, and hoping that they are strategic. But I think overall, though, we have already understood that, and we're dynamically making sure that we don't run into those situations where people have too many tokens that they can affect the chart, because that's one of those known things that we've seen in projects, and they're not great sentiment within the community. So I think ETH payouts are the way to go, and we're obviously going to have certain events that do call for the WASD token, but we're definitely going to keep an eye on it to make sure that nobody's over leveraged within the holder group.
That's really smart. Now, you know, what are you guys doing to also work with some of your largest holders? You know, it is really important from like, you know, whale management or holder management perspective to ensure that those who kind of have the, you know, somewhat control based on supply perspective, making sure they're happy and making sure, you know, not too much, you know, priority is given, but also you got to make sure they're happy, because you don't want to get like 2, 3, 4% getting nuked on your chart when you're trying to run things up. So,
yeah, I agree 100%. Like, we've been talking amongst the team, and one of the things we've been talking about is keeping people happy. I think the overall consensus is, like, you can never beat the Jeets. Like, they're always going to be there at every single stage of the chart. Most of the time, you have to strategically plan on how to outpace the Jeets, right? And by that, you have to keep your largest holders happy. You have to keep the community happy. You have to give them incentive to keep holding. And the marketplace is going to be a huge one. And I know there's a lot of expectations around that, and people are excited to see more of that aspect, which it's coming. And obviously you can't wait too long because you don't want people to get bored. Thankfully, usually the largest holders from the beginning and over a month and over time, like, you know that they are holding because they understand where the project is going. I would say after, you know, a month and a week, we've pretty much established that this is a real project. This is a long-term project. I mean, the 2-year LP obviously confirms that. The games that are being released have confirmed that. The news every week or day or whatever, we have news going forward that we're dropping. People see what's coming. And I think all those things incentivize from the big to the small holders to keep on holding. So yeah, I think it's just staying on top of everything and making sure that we're outpacing the Jeets, because they're always there. There's always the day traders. There's always the 2-timers, the 3-timers. You know, it's just always getting the guy. It's always about getting more long-term holders than short-term holders. And that's our objective in the project and the product itself, because we understand that we can capitalize on these products and keep bringing in money into these products. And that's just one of the huge things about GameFi and Web3 itself. That's why GameFi is so popular in Web3, because the smart people and the long-term holders, they understand that the potential is almost limitless and can continue to keep being built upon as the Web3 industry goes forward. So there's almost never a shortage of reasons why you can't keep your holders engaged and happy within the project. And that just boils down to a good team continuing to work and working hard. So as long as we sustain those things, there should never be a reason why a big holder would sell, unless it would be hitting, you know, 100 million, 200 million, 300 million market cap and above. You know, those large holders finally get into a place where they're feeling like, oh yeah, now it's time to take back some of my investment. Does that make sense?
it does, 100%. And I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, I think sometimes there's a bit of negativity surrounding taking profits, but I mean, you definitely want to make sure that if you get in something and you're supporting it, you're trading, you know, in a way that benefits the project, because, you know, generating volume on a chart is helpful for things like exchanges and things like trending. So, understanding just when and how to take, your profits, when to sell the rewards or, sell percentage of your bag is really important. So I think, a gap from maybe a GameFi projects that existed in the past, so there wasn't enough emphasis on the actual impact from the token onto the chart for some of these projects. So if you guys can really do a good job at, onboarding your users and onboarding your holders to understand the impact of the chart on the ecosystem or the token within the ecosystem and what that's going to allow them to do and why there's benefits to keep holding it, as you guys continue to grow and work in those additional like Web3 integrations and payment features in game, like that's the kind of stuff you need to focus on. But I love what you said in terms of the selling aspect, because I do think there's a lot of negativity surrounding selling. And, everyone says, oh, it's cheating. I hate that word personally. The only time you should use the word cheat is if somebody straight up bought your token for like $100 and sold it for 60 at a loss. Like, yes, that is not good that's not good trading. So like that is somebody who just very emotionally didn't actually know what they were buying and then saw it go down and immediately left. That is the only time that term should be used. But somebody who supports a project or holds a token for a month and then sells 25% of their bag to take some profits and then is going to keep supporting it, there's nothing wrong about that. I think, anybody who's in stocks or anybody who's in crypto, and most of the time they're in that industry or sector to try and make some money, right? So I think I really just wanted to comment on what you said there, Jay.
And I honestly, I use the term cheating just because it's just a cliche word. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I probably could, afford not to say it as much and just reference sellers, because it sucks when you see people selling at a loss. And I find that, there's a lot of ignorance in trading, and unfortunately crypto being a decentralized, world, it allows anybody to come in trading. And so people just start trading off emotions. And especially that's not a great thing when you couple it with early utility projects that can actually become a staple project. You should really be jumping into these projects with the intention of being a long-term holder. It's fine. Yeah, sell if you make 2 times, 3 times, if that's what you're going to do. That, more kudos to that person if that's their niche. But being early projects, we would all appreciate if people would come into it, honestly, to support the project and help us hold the project so that we can continue to gradually grow. And it's unfortunate that never happens. So you always see that initial pump in the beginning, and then it obviously consolidates back down, and it consolidates a lot on early projects. And now we're in the phase where it's a lot of the guys that were trying to 2-time, 3-time, sold off, and we're slowly growing a nice stepping stone, a nice, uptrend in the chart. But it always can go either way, because you never know who gets itchy and why they get itchy. But that's back to, the team delivering and bringing the product, and also marketing the product and getting out in front of guys like you and projects and communities like you guys, working with other projects. So I think QWERTY's doing an amazing job. He is the guy where you hear the stories of devs where you try to figure out if they're a bot or not, and how do they stay awake, for as long as they do. And then you also see the crash where it's like, oh, I fell asleep on my keyboard, and they show up 6 hours later, but they're giving it their all. And yeah, these are the guys that are doing that. So it's just nonstop getting in front of people, getting in front of communities, getting on AMAs, getting things out there to let the world know that, hey, we're here. And then when they get in there, constantly delivering on the product side, which, leading indicators will tell you that it's just going to continue to be that. We haven't stopped now. We continue to drop news. We continue to drop product. We continue to do marketing. We continue to get out in front of people. So we keep these indicators going. Yeah, the sky's the limit for sure.
That's awesome. Now, let's talk about some of the ways that you guys are going to approach like partnerships and what you guys really look for. Some of the ways you're going to go about the player acquisition strategy. I think that's your approach in terms of marketing versus traditional like calls and whatnot, being just smash push. So yeah, like what do you look for? I would say, Jay, is the most important question when it comes to a community partnership or even a service provider partnership. Like, what are you guys really looking for from either tokens or individuals that you partner with in the space?
Yeah, we're trying to really get into the Web 2 part. We've done some YouTube stuff. YouTube and Twitch are going to be key sources for us to capitalize on and get people in. For partnerships, it's a tricky one. We've done cliche stuff. We got PAL integrated into our community right from the beginning. We want to work with more utility projects that actually benefit our project, that get into Unity and the two web stuff. We've already talked and reached out with CoinMerge. We've been in the background talking to them about implementing utility stuff. They're still in design on certain things. We want to work with projects that are going to help us get utility into the project to unitize on like Unity and things from that aspect. So we're constantly looking for more partnerships in that regard. We definitely want to work with more companies for server stuff, and we're continually reviewing that part of it. So from a utility side, we're being very strategic. We want to make sure that if we are partnering, that they're just not those weird partnerships. Honestly, I kind of think these PAL partnerships are a little weird. Because you're like, oh, put your bot in my chat so I can ask it questions sometimes. And then you say, hey, we partnered with these guys on your Twitter space. Like great that the bot came in. And I love all the bots in the TG. Like they're awesome utilities. But I don't think they're full potential partnerships, as opposed to getting built-in D-apps into the game with where you can buy with, maybe it's anybody's crypto, maybe it's a credit card, whatever the case may be. We're looking at partnerships that help sustain our project for sure. But with that said, we want other projects to see our project. So we've come up with ideas to help create in-game attributes to work with other projects, to advertise for those projects within the game, to get people from those communities over to see our project. And it may not even be just to buy our token, which that would be what the final outcome we want is. But if we can get people playing the games, looking at the games, even if it's just to see advertisements on our games and in our space, on the marketplace, wherever it may be, we're getting those partnerships, even if they're not great partnerships, if they're more just like acquaintance partnerships, whatever the level of partnership that it is, we just want to make sure that they're still good partnerships and they bring value to our project. And if we can help them bring value to their project, like that would be great. Have a tournament where it's, Pepe battling against, Chiba or Doge or one of the boys club members from Mad Fury or whoever it may be, and get these guys in tournaments and they're battling with their token mascot, And next thing you know, Pepe wins and everybody's, hyped that Pepe won a battle or something, all those different little aspects that bring value to their communities too, and figure out how we can monetize that and work with other people. That'll be continual, but we're already on it thinking about it. So.
That's really smart. And yeah, like I'll touch on that comment you made in terms of just like, adding a bot in potentially and it being a partnership. Yeah, I agree. It's more so just a way to guys, I think, in the project, but a lot of the, as it's developed and, more and more projects have gone that route and then, maybe don't even exist, 2 weeks later, I think kind of it devalues like what it was intended to be to start and like kind of saturates the quality of those partnerships. So yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I'm really trying to understand like the groups that you're working with, and I guess from your side, just like at the WASD perspective, what would you say like going to the table with some of these discussions? What would you like say is like the biggest benefit that you can give to other communities, right? Because for me, it's all about that mutual benefit, and how do you position yourself as a value add, I would say, to these other projects or these other individuals that you chat with?
Yeah, because the real challenge is always going to get people to sign up for your product if it brings value to them. And we feel that it has to do with getting attention. Like it's always about getting attention, getting people to see your project. We definitely don't want to, work with like, for example, we want to work with meme projects. We want to work with established meme projects. Unfortunately, the meme space is a do or die space. So you don't know if you're getting a real project or you're not. So we don't want to be saying to those projects like, hey, we can help you even though we don't know you, because you could rug, in a week, and here we are saying, yeah, oops, that was a bad one. We want to work with legit meme projects. We want to be able to go to them and say, hey, we can advertise your projects, your logos in our space, whether it's advertising within the marketplace on a banner, whether it's advertising those skins or those accessories, whether it's whatever the case may be. Like we can help you guys get seen more. And it's going to be the big deal is too, we have to be an established project ourselves, because big projects are going to want to deal with big projects, right? So we got to continue to grow and deliver. So we're going to have to always be flexible on what level we're working with projects on to get them into our projects, get them seen, get us seen. And then when we accomplish those levels, we can hopefully move up to the next level, and so on and so on and so on. So the biggest thing is, how can we incentivize projects to be a part of ours? We've talked about maybe it's a free trial run at first, just to gain traction and get the flywheel moving, and then start paying for projects to get into our stuff, or maybe it is just the partnership, and we're putting their product and our product to get their members playing with our product, and then advertising that way and creating a bigger user base that way. So I think it's we're going to have to always dynamically evaluate those things and be flexible and understand what level we're at and what level we can engage in with these other projects, and work our way up to gain the reputation for the bigger projects to say, I want to be involved with those guys. That sounds like a good idea. And the same thing's true on the utility side. You can still advertise within our section with whatever kind of project it is. It doesn't have to be meme. It doesn't have to be necessarily utility. It really could be anything, because you can stamp a ticker and a logo on a race car, and that guy can barrel around. You can put a banner on your marketplace. We can announce partnerships in our main chats, on our Twitter, whatever level we feel that we want to present a package to our customers or partner with our customers on. We can do that and be flexible about it. So.
I like that answer. And again, definitely a bit of a different approach to a question in terms of like, what's in it for other projects. Because if you can really get that kind of pitch down, I think it makes it a much easier conversation. I think that's probably where a lot of people struggle.
I think partnerships are kind of like the market cap thing, right? Like you sometimes got to settle at the beginning because you might not be the recognized project, and sometimes you have to use the early degen callers to get to the next phase, and then you have to let time go by to get because you get known and you get people in the community, and then you got to let time go by, and then bigger callers see that and they say, yeah, actually you are a credible project. I'll entertain this, and then you get those guys and you hit a bigger level, and next thing you know, you get the bigger partners looking at you. So it's almost like you always got to be flexible, kind of at every level. I think they even say it in the music career too. Like, good luck trying to get someone famous to look at your stuff. Like, you start with the bar singers, and then you kind of work your way up for there, and hopefully they get you to the next spot. And so it's an evolving process. And one of the key things, and I think a lot of projects fail on this, is we have so many uneducated people within the space that have no idea how marketing works. They don't have the experience to understand this stuff. You literally have to make sure you are identifying your target, identifying what level you are for what level your partnerships can go to, and learn how to build on those things and capitalize on those things. So it's an ongoing process, but I feel like with our team, we have some experience. We have some guys that have been through life, that have seen a lot of things, have experience. Me personally, marketing. Cordy has experience in sales, I believe. So it's just an evolving process.
I can comment on that. Like, I actually went to school for marketing, went to university, was going to go for accounting, hated it because it was too boring. So I switched my major and then graduated, with marketing and focused on like sales and business development. But I laugh because, I talk to people in the space and they're like, yeah, dude, I'm a marketer. I'm like, oh yeah, you go to, what's your experience? You go to school for that? Like, you work in a corporation? What'd you do? Account management? What was your job? They're like, no, I'm a crypto marketer. Right. So I'm like, yeah. Like, there's not really a lot of experience oftentimes, in that space. And then when you talk about specific concepts, and I've said this a lot of times, I haven't really touched on it much recently, but maybe I will, because I know Caesar's been bringing in a bunch of new community members. Like, the traditional definition of marketing is like all about awareness and brand reach. It has nothing to do with buys. And that's where like the concept of marketing in crypto has become so out of touch, because everything in crypto, yes, ROI is important, but like, there's so many different ways to measure. You measure ROI in, traditional Web 2 businesses, and on crypto, it seems to be only like immediate impact when a post goes up to, buys coming through on a chart. And I'm like, well, the only type of marketing that you should be judging based on that is what I would call, and what you classify as, point of sale marketing. So think of when, you go to a grocery store and there's all those little like display stands at the very end, or when you're checking out on Uber Eats or on Skip the Dishes or whatever food service you use. And then they say, do you want to add any additional items? Like that's point of sale marketing. In crypto, point of sale marketing would be a buy bot that directly takes you to being able to buy a token. So if you're advertising on a buy bot for your project, that's point of sale marketing. That's where the whole intention of that marketing is to drive buys and drive volume, regardless of if the people understand what the project's about. That is the goal of that type of point of sale marketing. Now, traditional marketing, like we're doing right now, is all about awareness generation, understanding what the branding is, understanding how you can get involved, and understanding what the benefit of the project or the product, service, whatever it is being talked about is. So, yeah, like I always, I haven't gone on that rant in a while, but I always joke and laugh how people are so out of touch with what marketing is supposed to be in the traditional sense, and how they just relate it directly to like 5 or 10 minute volume in crypto. And I'm like, well, those 5 to 10 minute holders aren't the people you even want in your project if you're longer term. So like that's, if anything, the last piece of, volume or analytics you should be looking for or at if you're longer term. You want those people joining the community. You want those people testing the product, and then you're going to see the adoption through that trickle down or that pipeline effect grow over time if you're doing it the right way. So yeah, sorry to go on a bit of a rant myself, but I did have to.
No, that's awesome, man. Yeah. I mean, I agree 100%. Like, it's fun to see the difference between crypto and outside of crypto, and what people, you get the common marketer that drops in, but they're literally just copy and pasted what the other guy just did before them. And there's like no strategy there. And you're just scratching your head like, heck, what's going on? Like, come on, man. Like we need and I guess to be fair though, like you look at some of those big projects, like they figured it out. Like they're like, they bring in marketers right from the get-go, or they had marketers, or they had people who already had the networking done, and they grew to where they want. And to me, I feel like that's the level that I would like to see from WASD. Unfortunately, the early connections weren't there from the product launch, but I understand that that's something that we can obtain as we continue to progress. And when you get to that certain level, I mean, you can run with the big dogs and be in the top 500, 200, 100, but I firmly believe you have to have people that understand those ideals behind marketing and capitalize on those moments, when to capitalize on those moments, when you let volume drive volume, those certain decisions. And hopefully we can hit all those the best that we can and continue to drive this thing up.
And in terms of like, what's to come, like, what's in front of the community there at WASD, like you guys have any big tournaments or events that will be rolling out maybe in May? We'll kind of cover off the next month. I don't want to look too much further ahead than that, but give us a bit of a picture into what the next month looks like there for the community, for holders, and for those that come into the project.
Yeah, there's going to be a tournament coming up. We've been planning in May. The dev just made a recent announcement that he's getting all the details, getting everything lined up, especially on the token gating side, and making sure some of these bigger tournaments are for the WSD. We're it's semantics, right? Like we're saying, let's do competitions, and we're referring to those competitions as anybody come in and play, win one of the top 3 prizes depending on the place you pick. So those competitions will continually be ongoing, but we do want to have an upcoming tournament that is basically wrapped around the holders and the token side of it. So that is upcoming. The devs getting all the little tweaks and getting the I's dotted and T's crossed and getting ready for that. and I would assume that you'll see that coming up here in May.
Now we do have some questions here from the community that I'll kind of get over to you guys. We're around the hour and 10-minute mark, and I mentioned around 75 to 90, so we're keeping a great pace and perfect timing to transition into some questions here. So Jay, I'll read a couple out, and again, if some of the people who sent over questions, I know CC is going to jump on the mic after I get one or two read towards the back half. If any others want to throw their hand up, we can. First question here is from Gringy. He's got a two-part question here. Now, are all the games that you guys put into your ecosystem going to have to be developed in-house, or are there any situations or circumstances where you would, in fact, accept a third-party developer game, and how could that be integrated? So that's first question.
Yeah, and I think that all depends on the need too. As the need progresses, I don't think you have any other choice but to bring more people on. And again, we do have a back end, not back end. I don't want to get into computer terminology. We do have someone behind the scenes that is a developer too, that the dev has worked with in the past. So as the need does come, we will be looking, to outside sources for development.
I like that answer. And then the second part to Gringy's question here is, let me just pull up Vlad's DM. Where'd he go? There he is. Now, do players have to, I notice on the initial post, there's different links for the different games. Now, are you guys going to be building out a centralized hub where people can access all the games from one specific menu? And then going further on top of that, will you guys allow people to build out one profile and access all of the different games from more of a universal profile, or will each game require a specific profile, username, or something to be linked to it?
Yeah, actually, we just were talking about that not too long ago. We were talking about having a user database. And those are, and that all goes back to partnership stuff, right? Like having a place to store information. So we just have been talking about a user database, which should entail whatever information they decide to cater it to. As of now, from my understanding, we should be able to centralize games under the marketplace, which would just kind of be a no-brainer. But that's still being worked out at this moment. As of now, there's just the links to the games in the directory, and we have the online links for the games. We have the downloadable links for the PC, and then we have the Android links, so you can also play it on your phone. And then the upcoming iOS links that will be dropped once we get through the frustrating, overly complicated, but secure Apple criteria. So I think those are all great comments because it helps us to formulate how we want to get people into one main hub and be able to click the links and have their information stored up. Because one of the biggest reasons is you hit a certain point to your gameplay and you've collected whatever accessories, what other options you have defined, let's say FPS, for example, you have defined, I want my gameplay to start out with, these guns, this grenade launcher, this assault rifle, this shotgun, and I want that information stored. It's all stored in the cache, obviously. So anytime you start up a game, you're leaving off, or you're starting where you left off last time. So getting that implemented into a hub, that'll definitely be on the list of things to do for sure.
Awesome. And then we'll go here to, and I agree, this, the universal profile would just be really easy in terms of user sign in, and yeah, just like being able to play any game from one account is, you know, like I was alluding to earlier, click-through rates being reduced is important, not just for sales, for any kind of usage or adoption-based principles. So, yeah, no, good answer there. We'll go back to Vlad here. We'll get one or two more red, and then we'll get one or two on the mic live here to close out. We got there. So this one's from Dwicky Pronomo. He was curious for future 669's his username. How do the skins or items that are purchased in game affect performance of the avatar? Are these things that you guys are looking at adding in going to be strictly visual, or they're going to be, improvements to the actual gameplay attributes, skill sets, etc.?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. I mean, as of now, it's just visual, and it's getting people to notice other people's product or projects within the game. But yeah, good point. I mean, if you could add a value to that, like a Pokemon card or something like that. You never want a Pokemon, man, if you're. But anyways, Pokemon. Yeah, like adding skill sets or whatever to those accessories, that's something to talk about for sure. I mean, as of now, it's just been strictly visual. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, also the flip side of that is sometimes people get concerned because they see it as almost like a pay to win type scenario in a sense. So you have to be careful and like walk the line between adding a benefit, but not adding, a gameplay advantage in a sense, because then, yeah, like people who aren't spending, as much may feel they're at a disadvantage. It's going to, skew your adoption. You say the same thing with, traditional games, a lot of these like sports games where there's ultimate teams where you're trying to build up, your favorite players. I love playing them, but I really don't play them online, although I don't feel I'm bad at the game. I just don't spend money. I mean, maybe I'll buy a pack every 3 months here and there. If there's a player that I really love that then may be a special player in the pack, I'll take a shot or something. But yeah, I don't really spend much money, just kind of play with my buddy. And I jumped online one game, and it was like my first month playing. I had like, maybe an 88 or an 89 was my best player. This dude's team was stacked with like icons and stuff already, and the game been out for a month. Like, how much money has this dude spent on the game? So I'm just like, I'm just not even going to bother playing online. I ran the same problem, used to be a big NHL player back in the day and was pretty highly ranked. But it got to the point where, yeah, I'd go up against a team who had like Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, and like Gordie Howe on their first line. I was just playing with a bunch of randoms that are just like current players that are like 84s, 85s. So it's like,
yeah,
you
can't compete against Mario and
becomes a grind,
Wayne.
It's like, you're having to beat a guy, or like outplay a guy for 60 minutes straight, and then he takes a couple of easy shots and they go in just because his player attributes are better, and it's just like, oh man, it becomes frustrating. So yeah, no, that's why I like those games that are more kind of equal playing fields. We did get an interesting question here. Now, this one's from Freeman Patel. T1 is his username. It seems like you guys have addressed the issue of, the blockchain and scalability when it comes to everyday gameplay. But how are you guys planning to manage the potential influx and like growth of players that the tournaments can see? Like, I'll give you an example. Say you're seeing like 25 to 100 players on a daily basis. You guys run a tournament. All of a sudden you have 1,000 people sign up. Like, he's trying to figure out what the impact on the end user experience is, like gameplay wise, lag. If you guys go from that, like if you guys hit that multiplier of 10 or 20x from a user standpoint. So I did really like that question from Freeman, but I just wanted to give a specific example just to make it a little bit more.
I love that question. That's like one of those terminology is a good problem to have, right? We've talked about like bracket tournaments and stuff like that as things continue to grow, because obviously, like especially in tournaments, there is a certain limit amount of people you can have on team plays. I think those are hurdles that are always gonna be there. So it just might have to be one of those things where if we have huge influxes of players, it's gonna have to be bracketed up, and maybe it's team plays for X amount of people, and then whoever wins that day gets to move into bracket 2 for the next day. If there's so many people that are in line, I think just basic, and it all depends on the game. So that's a really hard question, because it depends on the game too. Because you can have tournament and you can have big teams in like the FPS version. You can only have so many cars in the drifting. It's up, I think it's like 4 people or eight people. I'd have to look again. I know 4 for sure, but you're gonna continually have to have the bracketing done around that. So yeah, that's probably going to be one of those ongoing battles that we're going to have to continue to evaluate and strategize around. I will say the nice thing with that though, I doubt it'll be an overnight thing. I think it'll be more of a progression. So as we progress, we'll be able to understand the need for that, and then we can position ourselves around that to accommodate for those issues, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Now we'll go here one more from the audience, then we'll get CC and Sujay up for a couple of questions live before we close out with our final statements here. Okay, we kind of touched on that. So this one's from Random Ape, Kill Switch Engage. I love how the name pays homage to the old controllers or keybinds most people used to use on those keyboard games back in the day. These 4 games support game controllers, what type of support is provided on these games, especially the combat game? Are you able to use a controller, like connect a controller to play the game via your computer, or is it specifically playable via mouse and keyboard? I guess he's just trying to figure out yeah, that makes sense.
So I do know in the FPS option, there is a selection for like game controller stuff. So those ones do have that. I'm not sure if that's the case across the board, as I have not delved that deep into some of the newer games. But yeah, and then also it's like the Android thing too. So there's obviously different ways to control these games. It does seem like the traditional way seems the most commonly used way right now, with just the keyboard and mouse. But I know also that there is the adoption of the controller and stuff like in the FPS stuff. And then the like drifting game, it's literally like up, down, left, right, which just makes it even more addicting. But yeah, I know there's more options in the controllers. I don't know them all at this point, but I know it's in there. And then obviously,
regarding that, I had a chat with Mike, and he told me he'll be adding it soon in the drifting game. And I also told him to add eagerly about the FPS game, because it's always better to have a controller rather than filling up fingers on your keyboard. So yeah, Mike is gonna do that soon. He told me that.
Awesome. Thanks, Grover. Yeah, so it goes back to community involvement, getting feedback, tell us what you want, and can pop stuff out to make it a more friendly experience, user-friendly.
Yeah, and we'll get to We'll get CC and Sujay up here, as I mentioned, for a couple of questions. So I don't know who wants to go first, but yeah, maybe CC if you want to jump in there first, and we'll get Sujay to close out. That works for me.
All right, all right. Thank you, Maurice. It's a good project they're trying to build here. This gaming gaming industry, something that a lot of people really want to venture into, but sometimes developers, I would say, neglect a few things about integrations, to Web3, and then the Web2 side of things. First, I want to talk about the graphics of the game. I was actually watching, the way, the person sharing the screen is actually playing the game, seeing that it's going to be, have a lot of graphics. I wanted to talk about system requirements, how the graphics are going to be used. So you're going to be using NVIDIA graphics model? Are you going to be using the system graphics model? What are system requirements? Because I was actually reading through the white paper, I was actually looking for if you have that outlined for the game, but I wasn't able to see that. So that's why I had to, ask that, because a lot of people really, want to join in the game, but they don't have, or they don't meet the specific requirements for, PC versions, right?
Yeah, and that would be more for the download, correct?
Yeah, including download size, for the PC too.
Yeah, so like all these games are built off of Unity. I'm not an expert by any means on how Unity interfaces with like the PC download side of it. I do know that these games have like you can adjust quality to compensate for your system requirements. So if you need like a lower grade quality so your system works faster, like that's one aspect of it. You have one of the big things is just like if you're playing online, like internet connection. For example, like I have different computers, but I use my old Mac for a lot of the degen and stuff, and a lot of stuff in the Web3 world. So it's a pretty low grade computer, and we have, I would say, mediocre at best internet, and I've still been able to play these games just fine. So on the server side of it, I do know like those are conversations we've had about, working with people and getting it to make sure that it's robust enough to make sure that, we're always meeting the system requirements. On the like what bit you're using or one of that, I don't know on the PC side of it, so I really couldn't answer that question unless someone else from the group knows and they're in here. But those are the great thing about it is any of these questions that I can't answer, go into our TG group and ask Mike, and he'll tell you like right away, because he is always watching and monitoring the group and making sure that everybody's questions are being answered.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Because I thought you will know a few of these things, based on sometimes you also watch, how this will play out in the end, because I was thinking about, assuming you had these answers to the question, I was thinking if I could also know about, changing, like you said, you have a Mac right now, sometimes a few times updates comes into the Mac, but for Windows PC, most times I always get updates, from my PC, do this, update security intelligence, do this and that, updates. And sometimes the updates kind of like affects the overall, Windows, interface itself. How would the game be able to, I would say, how the game adapt to changing updates, regarding, graphics, integration. But, like you said, you don't know much about this, but I'm gonna go for the Web3 side of things. I guess you understand the Web3 side. Well, in case of the Web3 side, I want to know if you also have an idea of how, when you guys get a lot of traffic, concerning, the engagement on the game, sometimes a few persons may have this issues of connection to your wallet, based on the kind of, programming language used to build the game. I don't know if any developer around the team is here, if they could answer this. How would you plan to, resolve issues like this concerning error wallet and, stuff like this?
Yeah, yeah. And the problem with the Web3 side is there's always seems like there's connectivity issues depending on whose wallet you're using. So it seems like it's always like an ongoing battle for that stuff. So, I mean, secure connections, good connections, especially on the internet side of things, those are going to be the key issues to maintaining good wallet connection. So that a lot of that's going to be left on the user's responsibilities for that stuff. I don't think, we have any way of controlling connectivity stuff. For the wallet stuff, it's making sure the D app just, connects good and yeah, those things are kind of outside the control of what we can do within our studio. As long as we know that we've tested to make sure that the wallets are connecting fine, transactions are happening the way they're supposed to. We outside of that, we have no control of people's internet connectivities, what pop-up blockers they may have on their screen or things like that. I mean, we'll have the suggestions to offer, but those are really the only things you can offer someone on the Web3 side of things, if that answers your question.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. It's just something that, really, would affect a few persons, especially when the developers are actually, built to a Unity, and then the connection from Unity, to the Web3 side, Solidity or something like that. But you answered the question actually, connectivity issues, not really your thing, you don't control it. And I'll just send in my questions, regarding in-depth graphics or tech about the project to the team or to the, TG group. And yeah, I think that's it. Appreciate your answers to
Thanks.
the questions.
Yeah. Thanks for your questions. We always talk about like scalability, right? And those are things that we just need to be cognizant on our end too, to make sure that whatever changes are happening and whatever updates happen, like we just need to make sure on our part that the scalability side is responsive enough to any upcoming changes that do happen in the market.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, sir.
Thanks for the back and forth, guys. So, CC, thank you. Sue, if you want to go ahead, you can jump in with your questions, and then we'll get the final closing statements up and everything wrapped up here.
Yeah, thank you, Maurice. Hello, JD.
Sujay, what's up, man?
Hey, good.
You muted.
I think we lost him.
Sorry, I got muted. Okay, so the games look good, and I'm someone who's eagerly sort of waiting for the Web3 games to sort of catch up on to the console, the PC games, and I think it's some ways away for that paradigm shift to happen, where people start taking games on the blockchain seriously and play them for the gameplay and not for the money involved in it. But I think projects like yours are, on the right path It's not something that you can achieve overnight because the Web 2 gaming ecosystem is huge, and it's not just developers; it's the hardware manufacturers too. They've always been at loggerheads from years together. Every new game that a big gaming studio launches, it really tests the capabilities of the hardware that is available at that point, and then invariably it prompts the hardware manufacturers to sort of make even more powerful hardware to be able to play these games efficiently and with optimum FPS frames per second, and with the highest quality possible. And that's been a never ending back and forth between the hardware manufacturers and the game studios. So for Web3 developers to be able to host, to be able to build, or to go against these gaming studios, it's going to take a lot of money, a lot of development expertise. But I think, yeah, sometime in the future, I think that shift will happen when the bigger game studios realize the merit of using the blockchain. Now, Mike, that was just a comment that that I was thinking about when I saw the 4 games that you have on offer here, and they do look good, and I can see people playing them just for the gameplay and not for anything else. So that's a good thing. The couple of questions I had was around the tournaments that you mentioned. I think that's one very good strategy for the game to get popularity. If enough tournaments start happening and these games are part of those tournaments, and then the word spreads, people want to get good at the game because they want to win those tournaments, right? Now, when you host or participate in these tournaments, the first question is, the way it's done on the Web2 side is, if a game is available on multiple platforms, then usually the tournaments are hosted on different game servers for different platforms, because somebody playing a game on PC would have an advantage over somebody playing the same game on his phone, because just because of the controllers and the keyboard versus your miniature controls on the phone. Would you be doing it the same way when you host tournaments? Would you have different game servers for the 3 platforms that you support?
So, like a big part of that is it's hard to control what everybody's playing on, and then it leaves people out if they don't have the other stuff. So it's almost like you kind of bring. It's almost. I don't know if you're familiar with BYOB, like bring your own beer to the party type of thing. Like sometimes there has to be a line drawn in the sand, like, hey, if you want to come, like you got to bring your own beer, sometimes there's just no way around that. So that's a hard one. I mean, that'll be probably one of them that'll be figured out as time goes on to see what makes more sense. Again, back to being, I mean, we're so new. Competitions have kind of been the way to network for us. I mean, it touches back onto what you just said. How do you compete against, PlayStation? How do you compete against Xbox in the Web3 world unless you create a Web3 Xbox? And I think I've heard of one other company like try to do that, but I don't even know if it succeeded. I think Solana was going to try to do that at one point or something. And I don't know if it ever happened. But because when you start thinking about those avenues, now you eliminate the Web3 part of it and the token gating and whatnot. So our biggest and foremost agenda is getting people to play, and there's no better way to get people to play except make it as easy as possible. So it's hard to say we need to start putting requirements on for people using different things. It kind of goes back to, hey, bring what you're going to bring. and let's see like what you got, and then kind of study that, and then figure out if we need to, fine tune it going forward. But I definitely understand the concern there. And to be honest, I have an iOS phone, and it's just historically worked out that way through different things in my life. And I really wish I had an Android, but it just never has happened. And if I had an Android, I would probably be going to the bathroom, knocking out a game or something, or waiting for a plane and playing. And just the fact that I would get to play, like wouldn't matter to me as much as trying to be the guy that always wins. But I understand that part of it too. So it's just going to be an ongoing battle. Our main drive right now is just getting people in, getting them to be able to win money, getting them playing, creating a camaraderie and community around that, because that's what's going to be the most sustainable part of all this. Being able to dynamically interface with people on TG or in the game, making them feel like they're a part of the community, building friendships within this space. I think that that approach to it is going to be way more beneficial when you compare it to the big game developers and what people are coming out with. I don't even know if you could put a price on that. It's almost an invaluable experience going into a TG, making friendships, playing against some of these guys, coming back and smack talking each other, and when are we going to do this again, because I'm going to beat you next time type of thing. It's almost like social networking with an extra layer of icing on top of it, because now you actually get to play games with each other, and not just one game, like multiple games. So I think that'll be the approach for now, is trying to keep it as basic as possible to get people using it, and then slowly looking at it from those different angles. And like, do you have competitions where you have to use the same devices? So,
Right. Yeah, no, fair enough. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the flip side to that is if you're better on one device than the other, you pick that device so your chances are better for winning. And I know that's not always an option, but definitely you can use that to play towards your advantage.
Right. Now, my question actually was around the back end side of things, right? I will play on whatever device I'm good at, but on the back end, will I be placed on a server which has a combination of players who are on a PC and a phone, or would my game or my connection be routed to a server which only has people that are playing with the same device as myself?
Oh, I got you. Oh, I thought you meant the other way around. From gameplay start a point. I don't know if I've ever asked that question before, so I don't know the answer off the top of my head. That would be a good question for the group. And I can definitely find out too, so I can write that down and make sure I understand it for next time.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Related to this,
I would be glad to add a point here. Just as the name suggests, it's a cross-platform carnage. So we don't actually have different servers for playing on different devices. We actually emerge an ecosystem where players can have a fun time from all the devices. So we do have servers for different ping issues related to, such as I play on Asia 1, and we have around 8 worldwide servers for that. But yeah, the concept of the game is around creating an ecosystem for each and every platform available. It's more like that.
Got it. Yeah, that I think that answers it. Just a follow-up question to that, to what you said. You have 8 servers worldwide. Now, when you start scaling up with more and more players, do you plan to host or own all of these servers yourself, or at some point you're going to outsource the hosting of the game servers either to a physical third-party hosting service or maybe something on the cloud?
Yeah, so from what I understand, we're already having them hosted to this day. So I don't personally, with the way that servers and everything's going, I mean, look at Amazon kind of paving the way for servers worldwide for what they do. I don't even think it's ever advantageous to have it yourself. I think it's always beneficial to have a third party do it, especially if it's a recognized and responsible third party, to where they have a backup to their backup type of thing. So personally, I think it's always going to be advantageous for us to have the servers hosted through a third party.
Okay, perfect. So that's how it's set up right now. Okay, cool. Yep. I think that answers all my questions. Thank you so much for taking the time out, and thank you for all the demonstration and your presentation today.
Hey, thanks for showing up, man.
Thank you. Thanks, Maurice.
Thanks again, Sue. Always love the questions that you're able to bring to the stage here. So yeah, for me, I think for the discussion and everything, really good coverage on a lot of different areas. Had some good suggestions come through as well from the community, and with the discussion with Jay and myself earlier. So yeah, like the calls to action here, you guys know, jump in the community, really, if you have the time, try and actually jump in and demo some of the games. Yeah, like really, again, take the time to learn about it, see what the community feedback is, as they announce the tournaments, see what the sign up rates look like. And if you feel like, you've been having some good luck, during your testing, if you have been playing some of the games, participate in the tournaments. You never know, the outcomes. So yeah, like for me, really, really quality stuff. I know you guys are just getting started, as we heard a couple of times, but it's nice to know you have working products, kind of hitting a few different demographics in terms of what people like to play. So yeah, like good stuff. As mentioned, around 2.8 million was all-time high. I haven't even checked the chart today, but kind of between that 500 to 1 million range is where you guys have been bouncing between, most of the last week when I've been really watching it. And yeah, just keep pushing out the content, keep, creating those community-led videos. And yeah, I think that's a good way to get the gameplay in front of people, because that's, I think, what people connect well with. It's pretty good. I like the kart racing, like really smooth. I play a bit of Mario Kart still with my girlfriend every, once or twice a week, just late at night before bed, have a little fun. So yeah, like everything looks good. I like what you're doing. You speak well to the project. I know a few people that I connect, like Buck and those guys in the space on last week's panel. They really liked it as well. So yeah, like overwhelmingly positive feedback everywhere I've seen you guys so far. Just keep doing a good job to push the narrative and, connecting with different people. So yeah, from my end, thank you so much for taking the time. I know we're going to get you guys out on a few different spaces around different updates and announcements to kind of get, some extra eyes when needed. But yeah, don't be a stranger. If you guys need anything, you can always hit me up in DM. The YouTube video should get uploaded tomorrow. So once that's live, I'll put up the tweet with the YouTube video reference, so people, if they haven't caught it, can kind of go back and check the recording. We'll have chapter logs and everything. So yeah, man, I'll give you the mic, Jay, to close out. And just one final thank you for myself, Caesar, and Buck. I know he got called away on a fire call, or he would have been listening in today. So
yeah, that got me, the fire training thing. I was like, oh, he's seriously a firefighter. But yeah, hey, thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry, I was like laughing to myself over here while Cece was talking, because Grover was like trying to run someone over in a Jeep. Like, yeah, so recollecting my thoughts here. Yeah, super early on the project. We're definitely here to stay with you got a 2-year lock on an LP from the Web3 side of things. Not financial advice, but being this early in this caliber of a project, especially this style of gameplay, the quality of gameplay, it is huge. You know, obviously we could go down the road of having Tetris style games and whatnot, but we're really trying to get people in, feel like they're at home within our community, building friendships, you know, friendships that last for more than a month. You know, we're talking, you know, a year from now, saying, you know, stories about gameplay together and being this early in a project. So, I mean, if you're into GameFi, join us. If you are not into GameFi, but you're interested, come join us. We have one of the most transparent teams and transparent groups, and great communities within the Web3 space right now. And our objective is just to continue to grow on that, work with great community leaders like Maurice, and other people within this industry, continuing to network. You know, I only see growth for this project in this space. We got great people. Yeah, and just thank you so much for hosting this and giving us a chance to share what this project is all about. We really appreciate it.